Welcome into the Legendary Sports YouTube page. I'm Mike here with Mikah and LQ. We're going to be breaking down every team from this offseason, giving them our offseason draft grades. We are starting with the AFC East. A lot of things have gone on in the AFC East. We've had a lot of conversations about this division because right now it's considered that it is potentially wide open with Tom Brady leaving, and you have young QBs, bringing in new QBs, bringing in star wide receivers. There's a lot to talk about, but first team up, the New York Jets. The New York Jets have been a team that have been known to be bottom barrel. But now with Sam Darnold and another season under his belt, Adam Gase is his second year as head coach. The Jets may be looking forward to move their way up in the division. So we're going to start with going through what they've gained and what they lost, and then I'll send it over to Mike and LQ, and they can give you a breakdown of what exactly we think that they've done this season. So let's start with the adds. They added Rashard Perryman, wide receiver, Connor McGovern, the center, Greg Van Roten, a guard, George Fant, a tackle from Seattle. In the draft, first 3 rounds, they added Mekhi Becton, Denzel Mims, and Ashton Davis, a tackle, wide receiver, and a safety. And they lost in free agency Robbie Anderson, their star wide receiver, and Brandon Shell, their tackle from last year. Losing the tackle doesn't really matter when you add 2 tackles in George Fant and you get Mekhi Becton, so that's not really an issue. But there are still some question marks about the Jets. So, LQ, I'll send it to you first. What were your thoughts on the Jets' free agency?
I think the Jets did a pretty good job in free agency, man. They addressed just about all of the needs that they didn't maybe address in the draft. Like tackle and the offensive line was a big issue and a part of the development of Sam Darnold. As you guys know, Le'Veon Bell is near and dear to my heart. We haven't really seen the Le'Veon Bell of old because of that offensive line in New York isn't what we had here in Pittsburgh. So they've added on that offensive line, which was good. Talking about in free agency, losing Robbie Anderson was huge, but they replaced it with Rashard Perryman, who came on pretty strong last year with Jameis. I think those last 3 or 4 games, he had maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns. So maybe he fills that void. I don't think he 100% can do everything that Robbie Anderson may be able to do. But as far as kind of filling that gap, I think he's a pretty good piece.
Micah?
Yeah, I definitely think the Jets went the conservative route, in my opinion, in free agency. They didn't make any super big splashes by getting guys with high value off the market or things like that. But for a team that's kind of been in the either they go 6-10 or they're going 9-7 kind of range, like they're pretty average. They filled in gaps to what I feel like they need to fill in, especially on the offensive side. Their big needs, obviously, with the loss of Robbie Anderson and Brandon Shell were tackle and receiver, and they filled them both, whether it was actually in free agency or in the draft. And actually, they found a way to balance and do both. So, really, you might see 2 rookies end up starting on day one, or you might see 2 older guys getting the nod, and it's not a bad thing, especially in a division that's as open as the AFC East right now. You want to see what guys can do in these positions. I'm not mad with anything they've done. I think their defense is definitely their strong suit, and I think they're going to rely on them once again with Jamal Adams being, if not the best safety in the league, one of the best safeties in the league. And I think as a defense, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. I did, and just talk about the defense real quick, I did like that they got some depth pieces with Ashton Davis and Bryce Hall. And I think day 2 and day 3 in the draft, those are pretty good. They picked up Lamar Jackson, an undrafted free agent, Shaheem Carter. All these guys are going to fill decent roles, and I think they might all see the field. And it's just, the Jets keep building what they're building. You could possibly see them in a wild card contention or something like that. They're just a pretty boring team. It's just about if they win these division games or not. But like we said, it's pretty open right now. But as far as free agency goes, it was pretty boring, pretty standard, but it was good for them.
Yeah, I think I agree there. They didn't make any splash moves in the offseason. They kind of just try to replace whatever they're going to lose. I still have an issue. Like we've seen the good Rashard Perryman, but we've also seen the bad Rashard Perryman. Yeah. So like, what exactly are you going to get from him? Robbie Anderson, at least every week that he was healthy and playing, you knew what you were getting from him. On the other side, like Denzel Mims, that's still a rookie. Rookie wide receivers can come on the scene immediately and make plays, but also they can struggle. I mean, we thought N'Keal Harry coming out of Arizona State last year was going to be able to produce a lot for Tom Brady. Obviously, he was hurt for the first part of the season. But when he came back, he was never able to even like replicate somewhat of the production that we thought he was going to bring. So if Denzel Mims is able to take up that Robbie Anderson role and be that number one receiver immediately, that works out. But if he doesn't, the Jets are in a situation where you're looking again, and it's Jamison Crowder as your best wide receiver. And if you're Sam Darnold, is that really what you want going into your third year, as Jamison Crowder as your best wide receiver? So before we move on to give our grades, LQ, you said you have a Sam Darnold take, so let me hear it.
So every quarterback needs to take that leap. We've seen it from all great quarterbacks. Most recently taking that leap, I think we've had let's see. I'm trying to find somebody to compare him to, man, and it's really hard for me because he's different and he's strange. We've seen a lot of good Sam Darnold. We've seen a lot of bad Sam Darnold. I don't want to compare him to Baker Mayfield. That is definitely not his trajectory. No. But in the good times that we have seen him good in play action. And I mean, think that
you could see like maybe like early Carson Wentz. Like Carson Wentz's first season, like he was good, but he was like, let's see. But then he had that MVP season before he got hurt.
So
where you're
the
like,
reason why I probably wouldn't say Carson Wentz is because that offense was kind of catered and built around him. In the Jets offense, there's no real continuity. So I feel like this year, since they got an offensive line around him, they've drafted a few different weapons. Le'Veon Bell should be having a pretty good year. So that play action that he's been really good on and predicated at USC in college, maybe he can get back to that. So I think Sam Darnold could be a top 7 quarterback in the AFC this year.
In the AFC?
In the AFC.
Okay. All right.
I would take it. You know what, though? I would take it a step further. I think if they come out and they get a wild card spot, you could possibly consider him the best QB in the division.
That's fair.
Because
that's
Tua's a rookie.
That was going to be my original.
I don't know if Tua's going to play this year, and he's a rookie. And whoever quarterback starts in Miami besides Tua is not it.
That's not. Yeah.
Josh Allen is. We'll get to the Bills next, but Josh Allen, y'all know how I feel about my man. He's a winner. He's a baller, but he got a live arm. Let's just say that. And
Jared Stidham, we don't know. I mean,
the Patriots. We're gonna get to the Patriots too. Yeah. I hope they sign Cam because then he'll fill that role. But I don't think it's happening. So
just think about it. You got the of course you got the Lamar, you got the Pat. You know that's that upper echelon.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold's here.
Yeah,
he's right there.
Got to get to your Deshaun's up there.
Right under that.
Under
to be fair,
right there, right behind him.
To be fair, if Sam Darnold's on like the Raiders, bro, I think he produces more than Derek Carr does because, I mean, I haven't seen Derek Carr thrown down the field in a while since he got that injury. And I think him just having more confidence in, first of all, just health and maybe more confidence with a guy like John Gruden around him. If Sam Darnold was like on the Raiders, you could possibly see them being a better team, at least in the past. Like, Derek Carr is like a good quarterback and everything like that, but he's like, I don't know. He reminds me a lot of like Kirk Cousins, but, you know.
So LQ, you think that Sam Darnold hasn't been as consistent and as good as he's been because the team hasn't been catered towards him?
In mono.
Yep, well, of course, mono. I mean, he got a new coach, and he's now that he's in his second year with his coach, he knows the game. He's getting weapons. His whole line is being rebuilt. He's from center to tackle out. The whole line is being rebuilt. You think that he's now set and primed to take that next step and be a top, maybe if he's seven in the AFC, then a top 12 to 15 QB in the NFL?
So he went 17 and 15 his first year. The following year, 19 and 13. The passer rating went from a 77 to an 85. So there's some upwards trajectory. Those yards went from 2,800 to 3,000. So we're moving upward. We're trending upward. So it's definitely possible for him to take that second leap. I'm thinking maybe around 37 to maybe even 4K this year.
Okay, that should be interesting to watch. How the Jets are able to move forward, and if Adam Gase is the guy, I mean, no excuses at this point. You get a new line, you get a couple of receivers. Let's see if you can work. But let's get actually into the draft grades. Mike, I'll start with you. So, what exactly are you giving the Jets for their offseason?
So for their offseason grades, considering their draft picks and, you know, the offseason moves that they made, I feel like they get a C plus, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I feel like they filled the holes they needed, but they didn't necessarily make any splash moves. They played it pretty safe. Besides, I feel like they went with the script during the draft. The first 2 picks were probably the best of what they needed. They got Mikah back then, they got Denzel Mims, and then they filled up on their defensive side, and that's okay. That's a safe draft and everything like that. But the splash moves and the moves that's going to take you from being average to great in the AFC, they didn't really make that happen. So a C plus, which is a good thing for them. They did not lose anything, which they could have. It could have been terrible for them. Like, they lost 2 of the most productive offensive players. They could have went terrible. They filled in the roles, and then hopefully these guys will start playing better. But a C plus for them is pretty good.
LQ?
I'm gonna agree. I'll say a C, not a C plus. The reason why I'll give it a C is because I feel like last offseason was kind of their big money season. They got CJ Mosley and they got Le'Veon Bell. So in terms of their cap, I guess they kind of played it safe this year, not really doing too much with the big free agent signing. So I understand it there. As far as the draft picks, they kind of played it safe, getting the tackle in the first round. I think his numbers are really crazy coming out of the combine. I think he runs maybe a 4.6, 4.7. So like just that kind of freakish speed. And then they have Quentin Williams on the defensive side of the ball on the DN. That's what they got last year in the draft. So I think they didn't really need to stack up there. They got the corner Bryce Hall, and then they got Lamar Jackson, as you said. So that's pretty much shoring up that secondary that they got back there. So they did pretty much decent. So nothing too good, nothing too bad. So I think the C is probably the best grade for them.
Yeah, I went with a B minus because personally, as a former O lineman, nothing happens without your O line being set. And they realized that if Sam Darnold is going to be the guy of the future, you have to be able to protect him. They got signed centers, signed a center or guard and a tackle in free agency, drafted a tackle in the draft, and with that, you're set. You're set for the next 3 years to make sure Sam Darnold is going to be protected, that he's not running around. Because when he can set his feet, when he's safe in the pocket, he can be deadly. We saw it at USC, and we've seen, like you said, the good games against teams this year. Cowboys game.
So you played great against the Cowboys.
Able to kill the Cowboys, who have a pretty good defense. And he was able to be great. And why? He didn't have any pressure. So I give him a B minus. Wide receiver obviously is still a worry, but Denzel Mims did fall further than we expected him to, and they were able to capitalize on that. That's always a positive when I think a player is really good and you get him a lot later than he should have. I don't know much about Ashton Davis. I wasn't watching Pac-12 or college football, but apparently he's a heavy hitter. He's a baller.
2 thumbs up.
Hey, if you have another,
reminds me of Taylor Rapp from last year.
If you have another player that you can pair with Jamal Adams and just keep that defense the way it is, it's a pretty good offseason for the Jets for me. But that's going to wrap it up for the Jets free agency. Up next, we have the Buffalo Bills, and that should be pretty interesting. But for Mike and for LQ, we'll see you on the next video.